increasing the capacity for the local community. So and this is in your handout there, that really there's only two ways to increase the capacity when I see it. Funding, which we know is always a challenge, getting increased funding, or just grow the environmental community and organizations. And the three ways to do that: add members to the EAC, but that's tough to do. I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it, but really increasing teamwork among existing groups and engaging the community. I think the two ways you're going to increase capacity on environmental issues. And when I see what's going around in the city and the community, there are a lot of groups that are working on environmental stuff, but they're not really connected. They're kind of doing their own thing. And I think the real benefit of the EAC here would be to get them together and get them all working in the same direction. So there's really three ways to meet the environmental goals. And when you boil it right down, you got to do stuff, you got to take action, like clean up the beach or plant trees or manage stormwater. You got to educate people, engage people in stuff. So conduct classes like composting classes, signage about rain gardens, seminars about native plants, and there are groups that already do that. Or you got to advocate for more money or advocate for changes in legislation. So those three things are the ways you move forward in meeting those environmental goals. And when I think about those three things, I put together this environmental wheel idea. And because there are lots of groups that do one or both, or one thing or two things, or not many that do all three of those things. And they focus on, like some groups focus on education. Like Master Gardeners, a lot of their thing is education. Leaf with the tree planting, they do stuff. They're planting trees. Best does stuff. Penn Future, I think their main focus is advocacy, but they also do training. So when I think of moving the environmental goals forward, I think of this wheel of progress that we can create here. And so what the EAC could focus on is identifying partner organizations, identifying environmental themes for the city, and then choose two or three themes for focus and kind of create an environmental wheel for each of those themes so that you have a group of organizations that are already existing, already having fun doing what they're doing. Like Master Gardeners have fun doing what they're doing. Gardening groups have fun doing what they're doing. The engineering department here has fun fixing pipes. Probably don't have fun teaching people about rain gardens because that's not their thing. But if you could bring those groups together and engage organizations to participate in that environmental wheel idea and in one specific theme. So you might have 3 or 4 themes, but you know all the groups in the community that are interested in doing something related to that theme. And the goals would be increasing collaboration, because I may be unfair to say this, but there's not a ton of collaboration amongst all the groups that want to do something. And there are a lot of people that do want to do something, and it'd be nice if they were all working together to do something for moving the environmental goals forward. So focus those environmental partners on these common themes, align the groups and people with the common themes, and facilitate teamwork so that you can all see things moving forward in kind of in lockstep instead of little bits and pieces. So there are lots of resources and organizations out there. You know more of them than I do. I mean, that Birdtown USA, I think somebody might know about them. That's a real neat organization in Pennsylvania, and all the others. So just think about using this organization to create those themes, build that wheel, and get that collaboration going. And then, you're not doing all the work, but you've got all those other organizations that already exist, already doing stuff along those lines, but everybody's working together to get to this certain specific thing. So just a suggestion, and best wishes to you on moving forward on their local climate action plan. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. So, is anybody else? Okay. Well, we don't have to respond to public comment. That's right. Okay. So, we're moving on to the
UHLIU.
Okay. As you might see during the meeting, we have established some things that we're working on as priorities. So that's okay. Okay. Go on.
So, you at the last meeting you asked me specifically to look into some information
around the local climate action plan and really how do we drive this process forward? Or really, I think it was more of like, what is it? How do we want to frame it? Those types of questions. Well, I started to do a little research online and I came across this local climate action program through Penn State. And I happened to, it's technical assistance that's given to municipalities for, it's a program, and I'm going to let Brandy explain it a little bit more. It's a program that couples students with different municipalities with a academic leader to provide technical assistance around climate change, sustainability, really greenhouse gas inventories, and those types of things. Well, so I reached out to the contact on this webpage, and he responded immediately. His name was Christopher Nate, I think, or Christopher. He responded immediately and said, "Oh, the City of Erie already participated in the local climate action program from 2022 to 2023. It's a semester-long technical assistance." Year-long, sorry. 20.
Just out.
Okay, so 21, 22, 22, 23, something like that. And then he gave me, which I sent you today, so I apologize. He sent me the City of Erie's Climate Action Plan, which is the report that the students generated. No, it's the deliverable and the report that they generated, as well as a PowerPoint presentation. Well, then on Tuesday, they asked to speak with us to see if we were interested in going through a second round of technical assistance, considering we still are missing some of our inventory, greenhouse gas inventory data. And there are some other things related to some of what was just mentioned in terms of collaboration and cooperation among different organizations that maybe they could help assist us with. Sarah was on that call. Brandy is on that call, and she was kind enough to hop on and join us today. Just to give you a quick background of Brandy, she's an associate teaching professor for the Energy and Sustainability Policy Bachelor's Program, as well as the Renewable Energy Sustainable Systems Master's Program at Penn State. She also serves as the chair of the Implementation Technical Advisory Group for the Center's Region's Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, and also co-directs the local climate action program. And Brandy, you kindly said you'd come today and give EAC an update on sort of kind of a background as to what the program was that we went through the first time around, and a little bit of information as to how we would maybe participate in this upcoming semester.
So can you change the duty speaker?
When
she talks about.
Oh, okay. So, Brandy, the mic is all yours.
All right. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay still?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And I can't see you all very well, but is that the mayor sitting there? I think I recognize the mayor. So it's nice to see you again. It's been a while. All right. Well, if it's okay with you, I'm going to share my screen. I have just a little bit of background about the LCAP that I'd like to share with you, but really this can be a very informal conversation. Ultimately, I just want you all to understand what it is that we might be able to provide for you and the work that you are all trying to do in your newly created EAC here. And what that would look like from our perspective. So let's see what happens when I share my screen. It's always a gamble when I have both monitors running, so I never know quite what to expect. You'll have to help me. Can you hold on? Can you see my full PowerPoint slide, or are you only seeing the PowerPoint application?
PowerPoint application, not the slide.
Come on. Giving away all my secrets. Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing ahead.
It's, for whatever reason, when I have my dual monitors on, it, let me try again one more time. I'm sorry. Okay. We're going to try sharing just this part. How about now?
Yeah, if we still see it. It's okay, though. I mean, we can.
All right.
It
Well,
reads one.
Option.
So you can see my title slide at least?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hold on, because I've lost all of you on my other monitor. There we go. All right, we're just going to go with this. You'll just get a peek.
Brandy, what if you do view full screen?
All right. So,
No.
a little bit about the program directors before we dig into the program so that you know who Peter and I are. Peter is on vacation, so he couldn't join us today. But so Peter and I both share a background in climate action in local government. Peter more so from the elected official side. He served on our Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors for a while. During his time there, he passed a resolution for our township to be net zero by 2050. He's currently serving on our State College Area School District on the school board. And we've both served in some volunteer capacities to support the regional effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions here in the center region, primarily with our technical advisory group. So we really enjoy working on climate at the local level, and we've been fortunate enough to have a chance to do that here in the center region. And so we were pretty excited when DEP approached us about taking over LCAP. Because as you all know, climate is a very, we often hear climate change talked about in a very global sense. We hear about the Paris Agreement, or we think about it nationally even. But ultimately, where the rubber meets the road is in our communities, right? It's our local governments who have to respond to the impacts of a changing climate. So while we may not be able to control what happens to the global average temperature, we are responsible for dealing with extreme heat, extreme precipitation, weather events, things like that impact the places that we live, work, and play. And so I'm a geographer by training, so I like to kind of think of this as sort of a swirling funnel of scale, right? It's a global problem with very local solutions. And I think the other thing that I really like about working on this problem from a local scale is that you can actually feel like you're building momentum and making a difference. It's really easy to get caught in the doom and gloom of climate when you think about it on the global scale. But if you just start chipping away at things and working on things where you live, it can be really empowering, I think. So the LCAP program was initially born out of the Department of Environmental Protection's Energy Program Office. And for the first 3 years that they shepherded this program along, they pulled faculty members and students from a variety of universities and colleges across the Commonwealth to partner with communities, kind of trying to co-locate them who wanted to work on climate change. And DEP also partnered with ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. This is a nonprofit international organization that produces and maintains the software that is kind of the gold standard for local scale climate greenhouse gas inventorying, And so the way it worked was that DEP would pay for each of the communities to have a membership to ICLEI and access to the software. And then a faculty member and a couple of students would be assigned to that to work on it and produce an inventory and a draft climate action plan for those communities. And that was when I first became involved with LCAP. I got to be one of those faculty members from the variety of universities. So I worked on it each of the 3 years, and it was really cool to see this taking shape. It unfortunately coincided directly with the pandemic starting. So each of those 3 years of DEP leadership of the program were pretty severely impacted by COVID. And then after that, I think DEP realized that maybe this thing ought to just live at a university. Maybe that was a more natural fit for it. And so they approached Penn State to see if we wanted to take it over. And we very enthusiastically said yes. And Peter and I were so excited to work on it. We were able to move some things off of our plates to be able to put LCAP onto our plates. And so we're getting ready to start our 3rd year of Penn State LCAP. And so it kind of follows a very similar cadence to what the original iteration of the DEP program did, except that we are operating this as 2 3-credit courses for students. One they enroll in the fall and one they enroll in the spring. And we've built a lot of curriculum around the work that they're doing. Whereas when we did it in DEP's version, it was kind of like an independent study that a faculty member would offer a couple of students or internship credits or something like that, and they would just do the work. But we've tried to really expand this and think more comprehensively about it and offer a lot of curriculum for students to really engage them in this space. We're still working with DEP. DEP is still very graciously covering the cost of the ClearPath memberships for all of the participating communities each year. And we've also developed, I should update this slide, not just with Center Sustains, which is sort of our regional sustainability effort, but also maybe you all are familiar with Connect, the Congress of Neighboring Communities. It's down in sort of Allegheny County, the Pittsburgh area, so it's not super close to where you are. But so we're trying to expand this because, as you all know, Pennsylvania has 2,559 local governments. And so there's way more work to do than Peter and I are going to be able to do with a handful of Penn State students each year. And so we're really hoping that that this can build momentum and grow and kind of expand beyond what we can offer. So here is a list of the communities that we have worked with over the past 2 years. And you will notice, and I think it came up a little bit earlier, that we've already had a chance to work with the City of Erie the first year that we took over the program, and we were super excited about that. Sarah Keelman was our main point of contact. Hi, Sarah. And we had 2 students who worked on that project, and so we did produce an initial greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and we did do some climate planning work in that first cohort. And we hit some data limitations, and I think it's a great time for you all to come back and we can do more, recognizing that this kind of work, I always tell communities when they sign on to do LCAP with us, we're going to start climate action for you. Or pick it up wherever you've left it off, but we're not going to finish it. It's not something that we can hope to just, tie up and be done with in a year. So we're excited to potentially welcome you back. We've had a few repeat customers for the LCAP program, so it would be nice to add Erie to that list. But yeah, so these are the communities that we worked with. And so, like I said, the way this works is the fall semester is really dedicated to producing a robust, comprehensive greenhouse gas emissions inventory, because ultimately, down the road, as you implement programs to try to reduce emissions, you're going to need that sort of benchmark to judge against. And so having this inventory as a snapshot in time will be really good. When we initially worked with you all in that first cohort of ours, I believe we did inventorying for 2019 and 2021. We will be doing calendar year 2023 for this year's cohort. So this will give you a really nice you'll be able to piece together a longitudinal, snapshot of what emissions are doing in the city of Erie. and you all know what things you've already implemented and what things you're planning to implement. And so we can kind of start to look to see, is that pulling that line down the way that we expect it to, or at least preventing that line from, increasing more sharply than we would have expected. So we spend a lot of time in the fall semester doing that. Collecting the data is a big adventure, and I am pleased to report that I think we have learned a lot since the last time that we did this with you all, and we are now going after the data, particularly from our utility providers, much earlier in the process. So that is going to help us a lot. I vet all of the inventorying data entry that the students do, and then we also run it by our technical assistance support person at ICLEI. They also go through it. So by the time that we are presenting it to you, whether it's a gathering of this group or at a city council meeting or whatever space you want, you can be pretty confident that while it is student work, there have been a fair number of eyes on it to validate it and make sure it's accurate. And so I pulled in just real quick. This was what I couldn't make it produce the pie chart. I tend to like to look at these as pie charts. Maybe it's because I like pie, but ClearPath was not cooperating with me earlier today, so I could only get a bar graph here. But this is what the inventory from 2021 looks like for the city of Erie, and this is pretty standard in terms of the proportions of emissions that we expect from these different sectors. Energy consumption in your buildings and transportation are always the biggest culprits. And so that's where we want to, put a lot of our effort into reducing emissions. And the good news about this is that, particularly with building energy, this is also where you have the opportunity to save money and improve comfort. And so the co-benefits and the financial landscape of implementing things that reduce emissions is pretty favorable. And so I think that, it gives us an opportunity to really think about ways we can do projects that aren't particularly contentious, right? Nobody, no matter who you vote for, nobody wants to give more money than they have to their electricity company or their gas company. And so looking for ways to enhance efficiency, always a good start. So we spend the fall doing that inventory, and then we get to the spring semester, and I like to think of this as choose your own climate policy adventure. So some of the communities that we've worked with have wanted us to produce in that spring semester a draft climate action plan that they can put before their board of supervisors or city council to possibly adopt, or at least to use as a starting point to build something out. That's one pathway we can take. And we don't need to know what pathway we want to take until December. Other communities have wanted to go different routes. We worked with Lower Marion Township down near Philadelphia. They were already in the middle of like a big sustainability plan that was more comprehensive than just climate. And so what they wanted from us were future emissions scenarios based on different things they did, different actions they could take that would reduce emissions so that they could bake that into the sustainability plan they were working on. Really what we do is we kind of come together as a team. Peter and I, you all, the students that would be working with you, and we pull together a scope of work, what we think the deliverables from that should look like. And then that's what we spend the spring semester working on together. I always like to say that we can kind of let the students and Peter and I drive the fall semester as long as we have the data we need to do the inventorying work. We can do a lot of that for you. But in the spring, when it comes time to actually doing climate planning, that's when we need you all to be the drivers and just tell us how we can best help you move things along. So the spring semester deliverables, and I think that Jackie and Sarah have all of this if anyone is interested. Our students put together sort of a roadmap for what climate action plans look like. I believe there was a survey, there was some other stuff done. I just grabbed like a small screen capture here of one of the deliverables. But so we can utilize all of that work that's already been done and build on that and build on other things that you all are working on. I know from talking with Jackie and Sarah that producing a climate action plan is a pretty big priority for your group, and so we would love to help see that through. I have some other examples in here. This was the Marion Township one about the emissions scenarios. This is another one that I pulled.
Brandy, do you mind if I interrupt you for just 1 second? Because I just wanted to mention something that you spoke about in our meeting on Tuesday, was that the updates, the first semester, so the gathering of the information and the data that you really recommended, and Sarah, I think you agreed with this, to update the inventory that we have from a couple of years ago, because it's already a couple years old. Plus, we don't have some of the information from National Fuel, and you have some new tools to obtaining that data, and there was some difficulty obtaining, I think it was shipping. I had it written down. The shipping emissions.
It was like water and rail transport data was difficult to get, and it's interesting because most of our communities, those aren't things that we necessarily have to worry about. So, yeah, I do recommend that we go through the inventorying process again. It's possible that will move more swiftly through the fall semester, and we can task the students to start with the climate action planning earlier than January. You know, we can we run these each as their individual projects. So even though the students are kind of going along in a cohort together, you know, if your inventory wraps by the end of October, fine, then we'll use that time to do additional, you know, choose your own climate policy adventure for the spring semester and just get a jump start on that. We'll move at your pace.
Can I interrupt? So, is this the inventory? Was it the inventory of the city as an entity, the government functions, or was inventory everything that?
Everything. So there are two ways to do it. So some communities do choose to do a local government operations inventory, which would just be the buildings you own and occupy, the fleet vehicles that are part of your operation, travel associated with employees, things like that. What we did for you before, and what most communities choose to do, is a community-wide inventory. So like, we're getting your electricity provider to tell us, for the city of Erie, how many kilowatt hours did you distribute to the residential, commercial, industrial customers in aggregate, right? They're not telling you, well, Sarah Peelman's house used this much, you know, things like that, but in aggregate. And so, same with the transportation. We get data either from Google. You guys are big enough that we'll use Google EIE data. So our cell phones tell Google how much we're driving around all the time. And so they have really pretty robust data about vehicle miles traveled within any given jurisdiction.
Brandy?
Yeah.
This was not an item that some of us expected to have on the agenda, and this is really all very good information, but we need to keep moving in the meeting, and we also need to kind of digest this before we actually make any decisions, I think.
Brandy, I wanted to just touch upon just one other thing, but I want to give you a chance if there's something else in the presentation that you think is really relevant to this discussion to show the group. Otherwise, I just wanted to touch on one other thing that we discussed at Tuesday's meeting. And it may be best to have the EAC members sort of look at the information, look at your website, and then if they have questions, they can certainly reach back out to you, or we can reach back out. I can reach back out to you to answer those questions. Is that okay with you?
Oh yeah, that's fine. I feel like I missed the entire. I think there were two people just talking now, and the first person who talked, I couldn't really hear if there was a question in there.
No, I'm trying to keep us moving. This is Freda Tepfer. I'm the chair of the group, and like I said, with this, this was an item that was just added to the agenda, and we do have quite a few things to talk
Oh,
about today.
that's fine. Yeah. No, and I'm happy to talk it.
It was me, Brandy. I was just trying to explain to them it was the whole entire city. I was saying that's why the inventory takes so long, because it's a big data gathering process.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no, go do the other things you need to do. I know none of us need extra meetings, but
Can I just mention the one other thing that we discussed, and with, having you here to support that. We'll move into this next. This will be a good segue to our next item on the agenda, which is the talking points. So as I explained to you on Tuesday, to you and Peter, each of our members took on, certain groups or entities, either internally, boards or commissions, and some authorities, to discuss with them what the EAC is doing in terms of the LCAP, and some of our other secondary priorities. And I explained to you on Tuesday that Sam Mason, she actually put together some talking points, and it's in your packet. And as I was telling you that, you and Peter, you had offered, obviously, if we were part of the program, that they would be a support to us. So that, let's say Aaron goes to, I think you're the sewer authority, right, Aaron? Say you go to the sewer authority and you discuss the importance of this local climate action plan and what the EAC is trying to accomplish, yada, 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 right? Well, let's say, and not for everyone, but maybe that particular authority is not on board, or maybe they have some skepticism around it, or maybe there's just some difficulty. We could potentially use the technical assistance support to help us but with buy-in, to help us so that those entities are actively participating at the beginning of the process, and not getting pulled in at the end when they might not be willing to participate. So they had offered that as part of this participation, and I thought that would be a great support to us, because then we have the experts, not that you all are not experts, but we have an additional level of
Are these undergraduate students?
No, this would be the main team coming in. So with Brandy and Peter, the professors, the academics, and also, coming in to support the EAs, to support us in those discussions that we talked about last time as our action items for the LCAP. So did I miss something, Brandy, in that?
No.
Okay.
I'm just concerned that there be a true local slant to the plan, rather, that I'm nervous about people in State College.
Well, that's why they're gathering the data, because that's just...
But that's data, that's not the human.
Right. And so the next part, the first semester, they helped develop a survey that we could reach out to the community with, and helped create a next step timeline of ways. Because you're right, the most important part of the local climate action is getting the information from the citizens. In addition to our issues and where are we generating all this, and then developing our priorities. Like how can we reduce energy or consumption, or how can we improve efficiency, or what are the priorities, where do we need to focus in our plan, our priorities going into the future?
And the Partners for Places also feeds into that. I think the importance of collaborating with Brandy's class, well, not Brandy's class, Brandy and Peter's class, but Penn State on this project is that data accumulation, right? You don't need somebody local doing that, right? And I sharing with Jackie over here that like us as a collective trying to get that data is going to be much harder than their class doing it, because they have access to tools that we don't necessarily have access to, and they have time, right? The students are doing this as part of a class, so they have time that is devoted to this. So
Right, it's just I heard something about that they might actually prepare the plan.
under our guidance, but she was also saying that's in the spring semester, and that's really in conjunction with us, not them doing it without talking to us, right? And we would have the data from the fall semester, and we would have the people for places kind of information that would feed into that. And I think that we become an integral part of that as well.
For sure.
Yeah, and I can share with you interested the documents they generated in the first round.
I did. I sent that to them today.
All the ones that sent you?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I share that. The other thing with the engagement piece is that, we acknowledge through the P4P program project that we have some challenges and there are some gaps in that engagement. And so we've learned from that, we're learning from that, and that we'll be able to synthesize some of the data that, we've
Oh, you mean that
Partners for Place and the
there
listening
wasn't that much?
there wasn't as much representation
Right.
from the frontline community, as many of the frontline communities that we needed.
Right.
And so we recognize that there are challenges, and also we recognize through the advisory group that there are a lot of groups, like this gentleman said during the public comment, that are doing things, but we're not like syncing. We're not all working together. And that component of it was definitely came to the top during the P4P process too. So that's really important. I don't know where they can help us there, but at least they can organize us, I would imagine, into, finding the partners, the organizations, and at least get us somewhere a bit more organized in that direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just, I was at a meeting, and somebody from Booker T said, we'll have a meeting here. We'd be glad to have a meeting here. And they didn't have a meeting. UE, the urban, none of those groups had meetings.
Right, and
we talked about the issues.
Well, I have an update, and in your packet, you have an update on the P4P. We can go through that after I'd like, maybe Sam should do her part, but I can give you an update on the P4P program. It wasn't for lack of trying, and we had to make a decision with the advisory group what to do. Do we move forward? We're under a timeline. Do we continue to try and engage in this first phase, or do we do it in the next phase? Which
Saying you're willing to host a meeting doesn't get the meeting.
right?
No,
They have to keep more work to go folks.
And actually,
Not all of them were able to meet that.
yeah, I read what it
Right,
said.
he said there was a deadline for the project.
and Chantil from Booker T said he would not be able to host a listening session.
Well, at the last minute, yeah.
Well, in July.
Yeah,
Just some of the vacation that was coming up. So, I mean, there'll be opportunities, like Sam had stated in the last meeting, there'll be opportunities to engage in this, hopefully, in the next round.
Randy, I think we can let you go. You don't need to be listening to all of this. Thank you so much for your time and sharing this, and then we'll circle back to you.
Yeah, that's fine. And if anyone has any questions, I'm just brobinson@psu.edu. Feel free to drop me a note.
We know how to find you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Email.
See me.
Okay, so should I just start?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
But just it's washing.
Oh,
That's just like a recap just about my.
yeah. So in your packets, this was sent around as an email, but just to make sure everybody's seeing it, we have who was assigned or who volunteered or was voluntold at the last meeting. What kind of community, city-based organizations or a facility? It's the word I'm looking for. I don't know. Anyway, that you were assigned to. Who are you speaking to? I thought I had the MTA, but that's all right. I'll do the redevelopment authority. I'm not picky,
I
but
had the MTA. And
I believe you.
Yeah.
I said I thought I was on. It's fine. So this is who everybody was assigned. Are we all okay with this? And you can think about that. And then the other thing that we had talked about at our last meeting was if we're going to go talk to stakeholders, what are some talking points? So I this was a brain dump of like 10 minutes that you see in front of you, but these are the talking points that I thought of, just kind of a brief introduction of what an environmental advisory council is. Our current priorities, you can talk about how we came to these priorities as well, as you wish. So the local climate action plan, and then the single-use plastics and litter mitigation. The points under single-use plastic and litter mitigation were just a couple of topics that we have discussed. I know that Freda, for example, is very big on the portable water refill stations, so that was the first one that I thought of. But I really kind of go into, because our immediate focus and our primary focus is the local climate action plan, kind of explaining what a local climate action, what an LCAP is, the steps to developing one, and then under the steps to developing is the reaching out and communicating, and that's the point of the Partners for Places grant. So then on point 4, I explain what the phase 1 Partner for Places grants, the 5 tasks that are associated with that, and that the point of doing this is to get to that phase 2, which helps us to set our goals and our actions. And so this is kind of where what we're doing can, and what the Partner for Places and what Brandy is talking about can all come together, right? Like they're collecting the data in the fall. By some point in the fall, we'll have kind of the impact or the final reporting out of our phase 1 Partner for Places grant, and then we can be thinking in the spring about what does our actual LCAP look like. So those are the talking points. Feel free to edit, add, change, whatever you want to them. I will not be offended in any way, shape, or form.
There was something I was wondering about after hearing Brandy, and she said transportation, and what was the other one? Water?
No, building.
Buildings. So I wondered if there's a way to sort of simulate what would be the energy use transportation-wise, citywide, or what is under our current configuration of a public transit versus what would be the citywide energy use under a more robust public transportation
So
system.
there are computer models that can help you do
Yeah,
that, but the
I'd like
first thing we need to have is good data. And so
Right.
getting back to
I just wondered if that's a thing that could happen.
that is something, yes. So that's,
They did that as an example with some of the other communities.
yeah.
If they did this agreement, how is the energy use change, or this, how would it change? And that is an option that we asked for.
Yeah, and my students actually did it with the EMTA specifically last fall. They did a greenhouse gas audit for the current buses and their running and everything. And then if they changed to natural gas, which is what they're currently transitioning to, and what impact it makes, and the answer is none. And then if they electrify their vehicles over time, what does that look like? So yeah, there are tools out there that can do that.
I mean, what I'd like to see more is what if there was an EMTA that made it possible for more people to ride the bus with frequency of service, density of service.
You have to have a certain number of people that are on the bus to make buses make sense. And right now, I think their ridership is a real issue. But that's part of the climate action process, yes. And I don't have all the answers.
Ridership is an issue because the service is not.
We can debate that. It's a topic of conversation. I don't know that that's completely the answer.
Yeah. Okay, but thanks for.
Yeah.
So people can then now move forward and try to schedule appointments to go to the various entity meetings.
That was the plan.
Yep.
How do we all feel about that? You have talking points and you have assignments.
Right.
And I sent the schedule out of the monthly meetings for most of these. I don't think I had the EMTA or the Water Authority. It was just the city ones.
Yeah.
So you may have to contact the person on your sheet to ask if you could maybe attend their public meeting and let go.
Yeah, I know when the EMC meets. Indeed.
Okay.
Okay.
And I know this is like a framework, what you put together, Sam, and it's very helpful. Do you feel that you need this fleshed out further, or do you think this is an okay kind of framework to bring with you and you feel comfortable speaking to these points?
I don't know that, having just seen it, I personally would want to look at it, and I tend to
Sent it to you weeks ago. Sent it to both of you guys, like 2 days after our last meeting. Just so you've seen it. I mean, you should have.
I would probably use this as a starting point.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Feel free to edit it.
So we've got about 20 minutes. What?
Just want to, I know this is not out of place, but one of the questions you could ask your reppers when you're meeting with them, where you're saying this is, are they applying for funding that would influence or partner with efforts that you all, the organizations that you're affiliated with? So, for instance, RACE has a very large grant they're getting from, is it the EPA? Or the Department of Energy. Department of Energy to do weatherization audits. So there might be things happening in those organizations that we're not aware of that might be helpful.
Great. I don't see Dave Rocco here. Is she not coming?
He is not able to come today, but Sarah said that she spoke to him and can at least talk to us a little bit about that. Thanks, Gretchen. That's a good point and should be added to maybe some of the questions, maybe some questions or takeaways at the end.
Yeah, I didn't give questions. I gave talking.
Talking's like there. Or we could do recommendations or suggestions maybe. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I briefly spoke to them about some of the issues, and I'm not sure about everything you want to ask, but I get a lot of candidates questions to take out and doesn't be say like the details really of the meeting can happen.
Are you near a microphone?
Telling me candidates they do
You know, what we were talking about, Celebrate Erie apparently is not. So when somebody uses Perry Square, is there a permit? What control does the city have over how the entities behave, over how the vendors behave, you know, in terms of could they be required to use certain kinds of food containers? Could there be a requirement to have a water bottle fillings? Well, we do have one, but really one, like for Celebrate Erie, isn't gonna make a bit of difference.
Well, in regards to the types of containers they use, it would probably fall under the same situation of the recyclables, because in the past, we've tried to have vendors provide recycling. We've tried to provide recycling containers for like plastic bottles and not just garbage cans, but there's no way to police that. And so once people start throwing garbage in the recycling cans, then it's all garbage. And so one year, Sister Pat had youth volunteers that wore special recycling signs on themselves, and they were assigned to each garbage can and recycling can station, and they would help people dispose of the things into the right can. But unless you literally have people at every single garbage can and recycling can directing them, you're not able to do the recycling. So the sustainable food containers, I think, might fall in that same situation of enforcement. It's like, how would he enforce that? How would he go out and make sure the containers really are made of sustainable materials or not? And then if not, what's going to happen? Is he going to shut them down? Or like, what do we do? Do we fine them? Do we tell them they can't come back? Like the problem, like, so it's more of a capacity issue, I think, of how we would enforce it, because we can ask them to do it voluntarily, but I don't know that we could enforce it because he's only one person.
Is there a contract?
The vendors, every single individual vendor applies for a permit, and they go over with Mr. Ruckel what their needs are. Whether it's, do they need street closings? Do they need water? Those water things to keep people from going down the street? Do they need a certain number of garbage cans? even requiring them to have a certain number of waste disposal cans is an issue for him. He can't enforce that. He hasn't been able to enforce it. So like certain vendors could generate extra garbage. Like if you're standing there in line and ordering all that food and then you stand there and eat it, there's more garbage. And so sometimes the garbage cans that are provided aren't enough. But so people have asked to have each vendor also provide their own garbage can. But again, how do you enforce that? Like he's asked them to do it, but you can't really enforce it. And so he just works with them individually. So when an individual event is a little bit easier, but like the Rib Fest, there's like 30 different vendors all at the exact same time. Or, at Celebrate Erie, there's multiple vendors at the same time. So it's not just one vendor in the park.
I mean, isn't there a way to have something like an occupancy permit? You don't get to start vending until you can prove that you have what you're supposed to have.
The permit that he has now, it isn't like that, I don't think.
Yeah, maybe
Because they have to require what their needs are for police, if their security needs, and then certain things you have to pay for if you want the bandwagon. But I mean, as to what materials they're using.
But does the city have the ability, if it chooses to start requiring those things?
They don't have the ability to enforce it, is what Mr. Rocco was saying. They have the ability to change it on the paper and say, you have to do this, but then how are they going to make them? Is
That you can't open your
But somebody has to be there to say they can't open. There has to be enforcement.
Right.
I think is all that.
so you have to charge a fee and then you have that helps pay for the enforcement.
But what would they charge an additional fee for?
For the inspection.
For the application, I don't know. So
I don't know. They're already charging. I mean, we have fees for a lot of things right now. He just isn't sure how we could implement something like that, it being only one person that runs the whole program.
Well, why don't we have him come the next time so that we can hear from him what the issues are and how to address them?
Right. And
Well, his biggest issue was enforcement. But yeah, we can definitely invite him to come back again. I mean, you could as often as you would like. I'm just saying what he went over with me was enforcement. He feels like he doesn't have the ability to enforce these types of things.
you just turned yourself off.
But perhaps I didn't get into details with him. So sure, you can invite him back to discuss specific details.
Yeah, I mean, he's the expert, right? And we want to,
He's the expert on how the city's currently doing it.
Right.
Versus how it can be done in other
Right.
locations.
I don't know that he's the expert on the second part. It sounds like he's the expert on the first part, but he may not have answers
so
for the second part.
he's our data, and we're going to develop an action plan based on Fred's
Well, so we would need to then, somebody would need to look up what are some examples in other communities on how they do that, I think is what I'm hearing. I mean, that the problem is that we can change the policy, but without enforcement of that policy, it's hollow. And so what we would have to come up with is understanding how other communities
That's a great
have
idea.
led to enforcement.
How to bring the examples of how other people are doing.
Yeah.
Are you, when you speak about enforcement, are you saying, okay, let's say there's 30 vendors, you said, for Rib Fest, right? So they're all located right here in this small section of the park. Enforcement would be going to those 30 vendors over the 3 days that they're there, making sure that they have sustainable food containers. That's the enforcement that's needed. I mean, that's not, and if you don't,
Then what
then
do
you
you
don't
do?
operate that day.
Right. I mean, I'll open.
So
Well, so they have to have the authority then to shut them
authority and
down.
capacity, those
Yeah.
are the two things.
They must have a health. They must have a health department inspection before they open.
Well, but health department and sustainable packaging are very different things.
Right.
The health
But I'm
department
just-
is not going to
Right,
shut them
but
down.
it's a concept. There is a concept of, I mean, it's one thing for us to say, to go to, one of the restaurants in town and impose things on them. But this is our park. It's
And I'm
we
not
should be
saying-
able to have more control. It should be easier to do.
And he's not saying it's impossible. He's saying currently he doesn't know how we would do it. But if we come up with some ideas or examples of how it works, then we could try to come up with a plan. And as far as the water refilling stations, I didn't speak with him about that, but I would think that, I don't know how expensive they are. I don't know if that's something the city would need to get funding and provide one, or I don't know that you can ask individual groups to all buy their own and then have it each time.
Well, there's the city, there's the water authority. You know, I asked, the water authority said that they've been thinking about it, but that's all they've been doing.
So they could
They have only
possibly
been thinking
provide
about
them and people would rent them or something?
They'd have to acquire them, but you know, to have, like for Celebrate Erie, you'd have to have 3 or 4 to make it work.
Before we move on to the water, can I just ask a question about the health department? We might not be able to answer this, but before the vendor
They already
gets-
have to have a license approved by
So
the
they
health
have
department.
to have a license approved that's not specific to that particular event for Rib Fest or so. They just have to have a vendor license.
And
through
they
the health
submit that with
department.
their
Okay, okay.
application.
So it's not at the health department level necessarily that the sustainability factor would come into play, or could it? I mean, there's that.
We wouldn't ask them to get involved. I know it's a concept.
I don't think it's under the health department's purview to deal with sustainability of containers. Do you see what I'm saying? Because they're worried about.
Food poisoning and
Yeah.
things like that.
Although it's not necessarily, maybe it isn't right now, but maybe that's something at least.
I think you're talking federal guidelines on there, and they haven't even listed plastic, and they will probably never list plastic as a pollutant because of the lobbying that's associated with plastic. So even though we know that plastic containers are constantly shedding micro and nanoplastics into our food, they're never going to probably label that as a contaminant or a pollutant.
I actually saw something about some federal program around sustainable food containers just in the last week.
Yeah, not in the health, not going through health.
No.
Not going through, but that's what I'm saying.
No,
I'm saying that with regard to public health, you're not going to see, that's not where it's going to be regulated. It would be regulated on like the environmental front or the environmental justice front or something else, but not health.
I just pushed back another 4:30, so.
Wait, but is that
We have to get out of here by
We have-
4:15.
It's not up to you. It's up to the. But thanks. Right.
Oh, you were warning us.
Okay. So
But of course, have
so there, you know, there's all these different grant processes, and it would be. I mean, one thing would be to look for, you know, I don't know if it's us. You know, like I said, I'm talking to the Water Authority. I've talked to the Downtown Partnership.
I have an idea. I'm working on a grant. I have a grant idea in mind, and so I can let you know by next
Rainwater
meeting if we.
biofuel
Yes.
Cool.
So maybe we can move on. Also includes disposable food packaging and a neighborhood cleanup, actually. So
Yeah.
I'm just.
I just want to say the Noodle Love and Give a Crepe are 2 places that have those kind of containers now.
But you have to have composting. The containers they have are pointless when they go into a trash.
Right, they're compostable containers, but they're still going into the garbage.
But it's better than styrofoam.
It's still going into a landfill, so that's questionable, honestly.
A paper product, I mean, then maybe
It's decomposing and releasing natural gas, which is likely going into the atmosphere. And in fact, landfills are the second or third highest emitter of methane gas into the atmosphere in the United States.
maybe we'll have to add the landfill to our greenhouse gas inventory.
That will have to
I
advisory around. No.
I actually was at a big folk festival where they washed the place. I don't know if they do it every year. Always like wash. Anyway,
All right. So we have Gretchen hasn't had a chance to speak.
right.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes. Go.
I will take that. I'm not sure what I'm here to talk about, but I can talk about cleanups. I know that litter mitigation is one of your priorities, and Love Your Block has been doing cleanups this summer and piloting a way to basically have a grab-and-go cleanup program that anyone could do, really. It's not complicated. But we're using cleanups as a way to engage with residents. The cleanup is the benefit, but the overall goal is to engage with people where they live and what their challenges are and the resources that they need for a variety of things, not just keeping the neighborhood clean, but housing and health issues and basic needs, trash cans, trash bags. There's a lot of folks out there that don't know the processes on how to get rid of certain items. Not to mention, recycling isn't even on the radar for most people. So so far this year, we've done 3 cleanups, and we've gathered just under 6 tons of large items and debris. And so we're just almost halfway through the summer, so I'm sure we're going to exceed, 10 tons of debris. That's nothing in terms of what the city collects, I'm sure. But the items that we are helping people get rid of, well, first of all, let me just mention that we're mostly in kind of underserved areas in the city, although not all. Our first event was on West 2nd Street in our West Bayfront, and we had 1.5 tons of junk and debris that were brought.
Listen.
Well, there's junk and debris everywhere. And so many of the folks that our team are helping are elderly and or disabled and or veterans who do not have the physical capability to remove items from their property. And they are not necessarily connected to any kind of social media or online services. So a lot of them are just so grateful for someone to come to their door and say, I've had a mattress on my back porch for 5 years and I don't know how to get rid of it, that kind of thing. So we use all volunteers to come to our events and help folks remove items from their homes. We, as a team, collect TVs and electronics. We set those aside from the dumpsters. We collect tires for folks. I know the city does have a program where they do that every year, every spring, but again, if you don't have a car, if you don't have a way to lift those items into your car, that can be a challenge. And so we try to separate those. We do separate those items. We use Pro Waste. They do take out all of the metal. They recycle all of the metal there. I can't speak to whether we're doing everything 100% in compliance with recycling, but I think we would be interested in getting your input on how we do it. You're more than welcome to visit one of our cleanups, and you can kind of observe and take notes. And we're doing our best with what we have. We have a $2,000 budget for every cleanup. So for a 30-yard dumpster is $540. So we've had neighborhoods where we've used 2 30-yard dumpsters. You can do the math there. So
how are you paying for disposing of the TVs and monitors?
the City of Erie is doing that for us. We take all of those items up to the Public Works Department, and there's 2 identified areas where we leave electronics and where we leave tires, and then the city,
We pay for it.
yeah, we pay for it.
We pay for it out of the refuse program.
Okay,
Yeah.
but residents, other who do it legally, have to pay, right? If I,
Yep.
Any store that sells tires will recycle them.
yeah,
They
but I'm
just charge you the
thinking of
fee.
monitors and TVs, just,
And I think Liberty Iron will take, not Liberty, Lincoln Metal. You have to pay to dispose of them, and then the county has an event
monitor?
once a month.
So we're providing a grant for folks for this service, so we're not just going into neighborhoods and saying this is like free. You know, we're providing grant money that we've applied for,
Well, the taxes are paying for the refuse budget.
and also that, right?
Sometimes you have volunteers, and Mike, the other meeting, 2 meetings ago, was saying a lot of residents have trees that are either dying or down, maybe down in their backyard.
Yes.
And if we could facilitate a way to get their trees down, and then they could, make their trees into compost and then mulch, yeah.
We have probably off the top of my head about 35 people right now who we've worked with that would love that.
Yeah.
They would love someone to come and take off that kind of debris from their
So
property.
would that be another $2,000 for each time you did that?
I don't know.
It would depend on the grant funder because, like, the city budget money, we can't help people cut trees down on private property. Our money has to be spent in the public right of ways, the boulevards, or the parks.
But,
And so you
yeah.
have to find funding that allows you to do that type of work on private property.
But we're not restricted from doing that.
Love Your
Block is not. We go on people's properties all the time with their permission.
And the average tree to cut down is $800. So.
But
But
we
you have
have, just to
volunteers.
answer your question, we haven't gone actively in and cut down trees, but we have gotten volunteers to go onto properties to remove fairly large logs and downed trees to the public right of way, and then Public Works will come and get them for us. So that's kind of a collaborative thing that we've done.
Yeah, if the trees were standing, I would not recommend using volunteers to cut trees down. between
No, we would
houses.
not do that. But we've had,
Professional contractor.
we've had volunteer contractors come and do it for us, yeah,
I mean, yeah, that would be different.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's it,
yeah,
sorry.
My timekeeper is gesturing to me. So, okay, so we'll keep moving along with all these things.
When is the next cleanup?
I stayed up as this Saturday in the Lower East Side by Wallace Baseball Park. After that, we're going to be in Washington Park on August 3rd. We're going to be in the Buffalo Road area doing some removal of debris, a lot of like brush and down trees in one of their community gardens. And we're going to be on East 7th and the East Bayfront on August 24th. And we're there Saturdays, all of those dates from 9 until 1.
And if you could please spread the word, because we've had a lot of difficulty getting volunteers, that if you could spread the word for the Love Your Block program, it would be very helpful. Maybe Gretchen can provide, or I can provide the link to the registration for volunteers, and maybe you can send it out to your neighbors and some other people that you might know, because all help is appreciated. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn? What?
Quickly mention the, I don't know, I guess just quickly mention, it's the last two items on the agenda, I think, but the EAC gathering.
I'm sorry.
That's happening,
Fall.
that stuff has been sent around in the fall. And then,
So the city would have to join to get the 10% discount? Is that how it would work?
Yes, I have to still correct. Carol Brayshaw, I should send out an email. The city has to be in the member and she was get a 10%
discount on registration for in-person events and virtual conferences. All webinars would be free to us.
I guess, okay.
So, right, so, and do you know how much it would cost for the city?
I haven't spoken to her about that yet. We do have some training money out of the department that we possibly could pay for a membership. I can't imagine it's so expensive, but I have to ask her, and we could do that rather quickly. So that's on my list of things to do.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was,
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's in Philadelphia.
yeah,
and then,
yeah.
Wednesday, July 31st, Gannon is hosting public feedback sessions on the center that is proposed for the Blasco Library. So I just wanted to share that. All right. Now I can make a motion.
Before we adjourn, I'm sorry, just really quickly, I wanted to, I attended, and I know Gretchen was there, and Sister Pat was there, and Mike was there, the public session for Erie Coke last week.
I was there.
You were there too, Freda. I saw you walk in. So, it was a little, for me, it was, I wish there were more people from the neighborhood. I didn't find that they were able to capture enough people from the neighborhood. There were some, and there was a lot of unanswered questions, naturally, because of the process that they're taking. But, yeah, I don't know what your takeaway, Mike, was, but I I just kind of came away kind of like, okay, here we're moving into this. There were no answers. There were some people who were a little disgruntled, obviously, which was a natural reaction to all of this. But I think for the most part, the neighbors that were there were receptive to at least doing the testing. So that's good. That's very good. Anything else that I missed on that?
No. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All. Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.